Ladies and gentlemen, aviation enthusiasts and curious minds alike, welcome to another thrilling special that will take you soaring through the skies called What Makes These Planes Great. So like the last couple times, this is going to be a quick fire video of me talking about a few planes and a few great things about each plane. So here we go. Despite having an unreliable engine, the Kawasaki Ki-61 Heian or Tony was quite a capable fighter. When Kawasaki staged a fly-off between two prototype Ki-61s against a Ki-43 Hayabusa, an early Ki-44 Tojo, a Russian Lag-3 fighter, a Messerschmitt Bf 109E, and a captured Curtiss P-40 Warhawk, the Ki-61 Heian proved to be better than the other aircraft types, and only lost out to the lightweight Ki-43 Oscar in manoeuvrability. The Heian had an impressive climb rate. It could take more punishment than early Japanese fighters like the A6M0 and Ki-43 Hayabusa, and it also had good dive performance. The Tony's good dive performance meant that American pilots in aircraft like the F-4F Wildcat and P-40 Warhawk couldn't use their dive and escape tactics like they would do against the Zeros and Oscars. Another good thing about the Ki-61 Tony is that it could match a P-38 Lightning, and like with the A6M0, a Ki-61 Tony with the right pilot would prove to be a tough opponent for the later superior Allied fighters like the F-6F Hellcat, P-47 Thunderbolt and P-51 Mustang, etc. They would also be used to combat the B-29 superfortresses, whether it be by shooting them down or through ramming attacks. The Heinkel He-111 was the primary German bomber of World War II, and it served the Luftwaffe from the Spanish Civil War right up until the end of World War II. Spanish Casa 211 variants, which were fitted with Merlin engines, not only appeared in the Battle of Britain film, but they served the Spanish Air Force from 1945 until the late 60s, early 70s. And the nationalist Chinese Air Force used He-111s against the Japanese in the late 1930s. The Heinkel He-111 was a nice aircraft to fly, and proved to be quite an adaptable aircraft as it could be fitted with different engines, and it was able to carry different bombs, whether it be over 4,000 pounds worth of conventional bombs, torpedo bombs, V-1 flying bombs, and even the guided Henschel HS-293 anti-ship missiles. As well as being widely used as a bomber against Allied targets at both land and sea, He-111 was also widely used as a transport aircraft. In the Second World War, they would be used for infantry transport, evacuating wounded soldiers, and delivering supplies such as food, ammunition, and material, etc. Plus, He-111s would also be used as a glider tug. So overall, like with the Ju-87 Stuka, the Heinkel He-111 was a versatile aircraft that was good at what it was built for, but was useless when Allied fighters were flying nearby. The Russian MiG-3 fighter suffered high losses, was a hard plane to fly, and production of this aircraft stopped early in the war in 1941, early 1942. So what makes this plane great then? Well, the main thing that makes the MiG-3 great was that it could perform a role that basically no other Russian fighter could, a high-altitude interceptor, and at these high altitudes it could reach speeds of 400 miles per hour. The fact the MiG-3 had a service ceiling of 39,000 feet meant it could climb higher than the best Russian fighters of the Second World War, which are the Yak-3, the Yak-9 and Lavochkin La-7. The MiG-3 could also climb higher than other Allied contemporaries like the P-40 Warhawk, Mark V Spitfire and P-39 Airacobra. Plus it even had a better service ceiling than the Russian post-war fighters, the Lavochkin La-9 and La-11. The MiG-3 also had a service ceiling advantage over its main rival, the Messerschmitt Bf 109E and F models, but it would still be an inferior aircraft compared to both the Messerschmitt Bf 109 and Focke-Wulf FW190, and Allied aircraft like the Spitfire and P-39 Airacobra. Despite the MiG-3 being an inferior aircraft compared to most other Second World War fighters, and not having great low-altitude performance, etc., the MiG-3 was still in use until the end of the war, and they would be later fitted with 6 RS-82 rockets, and overall, things would have been better for the MiG-3 had the Russian pilots been better trained and if the fighting happened at higher altitudes. The Arado AR-234 Blitz was the first ever jet bomber and reconnaissance aircraft, and it was the last Luftwaffe aircraft to fly over Great Britain during the Second World War. The AR-234 proved to be quite an adaptable aircraft, and different variants of the AR-234 would be built. Some had 2 engines, some had 4 engines, Some were fitted with cannons, while others would have no guns at all and relied on its superior speed to get away from any Allied aircraft. And different variants would also be fitted with different types of undercarriage and even rocket-assisted takeoff or RATO. As a photo reconnaissance aircraft, it was able to fly over the Normandy beachheads and take one set of photos every 11 seconds, while flying over at about 460 miles per hour. And notable missions as when they were being used as a bomber include bombing missions against the Ludendorff Bridge. Like the Messerschmitt Me-262, it was vulnerable during takeoff and landing, but air combat and aviation in general would not be the same without the Arado AR-234. Being the reconnaissance bomber aircraft it was, the Arado Bliss must have had an influence on future designs, like the English Electric Canberra, for example, which served from the early 50s right up until the mid-2000s. That's it for this thrilling quick-fire journey through the skies. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with my aviation content. Check up 2 videos at the end, or my city reviews, or even playlists I've created. Cheers.